in the pledge if we'd all stand.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a nomination of Tom Wilson to serve on the Planning Commission. Does the council have any questions regarding the nomination of Tom Wilson? Do we have anyone wish to make a motion to support the nomination of Tom Wilson?
Move for approval.
Motion by Councilman Orleans. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wynn. Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's all in favor. That's unanimous decision. Do we have a no consent agenda tonight? Approval of the minutes. We have on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Price. I see a representative of the Georgia Poultry Association here tonight. Do you have a presentation to make tonight?
Yes, sir, I do.
If you'd come forward, Mr. Martin. And if I'd like to invite my wife Judy to come forward to accept this. Oh, we'll vote on it next. We'll come back. Go ahead.
Hello and good evening. My name is Mike Martin, and I'm here representing the Chattahoochee Valley Poultry Association to address Mayor Wood. The group started 10 years ago in someone's living room, and the first show was at a feed store in LaGrange, Georgia, but they've come a long way since then. For the last 4 years, the poultry show has been the largest show in the southeast United States. It's only fitting that it's here in Newnan, Georgia, since Georgia is the poultry capital of the world. Our group's main emphasis is on our youth, as they will be our future leaders. We teach them how to be responsible, open to learning, and we hope to instill good values and morals in these youth learning to take care of God's living creatures. We work with youth through the Coweta County, through 4-H, and the poultry chain, which gives our youngsters who want it 10 baby chicks to care for 6 months, and accumulates into a show in October where every participant gets an award. This year, our 6th annual poultry show, we had a record 2,170 birds entered. Entries from 16 states, and it is estimated that over 3,000 people attended, so there was quite a bit of excitement and entertainment. I came here tonight to thank Mayor Wood for participating in the 6th annual Chattahoochee Valley Poultry Association Winter Show, and to present Mayor Jared Wood and his wife Julie Rayford the unheard of 3-place ribbons for his rooster Houdini. The first place ribbon is for Best of Variety for a Wheaton Americana rooster. Entry number 166. Now I want to remind everyone here, they only go by the entry number. Nobody knew this was Jerry and Judy's bird that they were voting on, so there was no bias taken here. Entry number 166, Houdini. First place for Best in Variety.
Let's have a hand for Judy and Houdini.
Then we also have another first place for Best of Breed for an Americana rooster.
Excellent.
Good job, Judy.
And last but not least, first place for Champion Americana rooster. You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
With your indulgence, I would like to get my picture taken with my wife and these ribbons.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Can this rooster fight?
No Mr. Congeniality?
Uh-huh. No Mr. Congeniality.
He does fertilize eggs.
Yeah, he does. Right up front there.
I would like to invite Mike Martin's family forward and our trainer and groomer, Andrew Wordy, to show the two. For a few more days, Houdini will be available for viewing at Rayford Gallery, and then after that he'll need to move. We'll be moving him shortly.
Well, Houdini has another wife. I guess Houdini's a Mormon. You know, he had Buffy as his wife, and I believe there's a new hen who has joined, and her name is Becky.
Becky.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
sir.
Mike.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Why not?
At this time, I'll call upon liaison to our Community Development Department, Councilmember Betty Price.
First item is RZ09-18, text amendment. Am I in the right place here? Text amendment regarding revisions to the public notice requirements for rezoning and other applications, presented by Brad Townsend, Planning and Zoning Director.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a proposed text amendment related to notification of sections in the zoning ordinance and the code of ordinance to increase the area in which meeting notice letters are mailed out to owners within 300 feet of the subject property. This was reviewed by Mayor and Council on February 8th, adopted on first reading, also recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. There were several recommended changes at the first reading. Those have all been drafted and included in your document this evening. Also at the place on the dais this evening, there were recommended changes from Councilmember Price, and I would like to actually go through those one by one so that we understand that the ordinance that's being referred to this evening. The recommended changes are in red. On the first page, we're striking through the word advertised and putting the word required under the first section. The original language that required the 300 feet is being maintained on the bottom of page 1. That is the exact language that was included as part of the first reading. The second change, which is on page 2, we're striking through the section dealing with the notice sign because that is a redundant section, as you can see below there, and adding language at the bottom of the notice section 31-123 dealing with the language of identifying the sections of the zoning ordinance that are being proposed to be varied when we do the notice and the sign. The third change is on page 3. At the first reading, it was recommended to use the term zoning staff. We are changing that to zoning director, since I do then direct my staff to do the mailing applications or providing the information. The next change on page 4 deals with rewording the paragraph in section 7, adding the zoning directors instead of staff, and clarifying the language for the information that is transmitted to the board for the appeal of a administrative decision. We're then on the next change on page 4 is dealing the required language is being advertised as being struck through in the required notice. On page 5, we're changing it to director again. Section 8, we're clarifying the notification being done for the variance. On page 5 again, there's the required instead of advertised. And probably the most substantive change is on page 6 in section 10. This deals with the notification for towers or antennas. The original language had this language or notification for 300 feet from the property lines of the subject property. The requested language that's included this evening is 1,000 feet from the location of the tower or antenna, or the proposed tower or antenna. So those are the changes that have been reviewed or proposed for this language.
I've got
I'm here
a
to
couple,
answer any questions.
got a couple of questions. If there's an oversight and notice does not go to a property owner, does that create a problem for the notice, and can that be a grounds for protest?
Yes, it can.
Which that, and that, then again, that creates a problem for me, because if, I know the intent is we want everybody to have notice. On the other hand, I want there to be certainty to the property owner and the person who goes through the process. And my concern is that you can have a lot of property owners, and you might get one wrong, and does that call into question, and can they then challenge the rezoning?
If you put the requirement in here that they have to notify everybody within 300 feet and they miss one, then that can call into question, because we have to follow it by the word.
And the follow-up question on that is, how do we determine who the property owner is? Does that require a title search of every piece of property?
We would probably use tax records.
But that doesn't, I mean, technically, that tells you who's paying taxes on it, but that doesn't tell you who the property owner is.
That's correct.
So that's my second concern, is that perhaps we should say the person who returned it for taxes, are shown on our record, so at least we can have and send it to their last known address maybe. I'm just saying we need to make sure that we don't create a problem for rezoning because we've made this thing so tricky, because I know what the intent is, but I don't want that intent to create a uncertainty.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying I think it should be who's paid taxes. You might want to look at the lot owner, the lots of record for taxes, and the taxpayer of record, and the last known address is shown on that parcel, if that's what we're doing, so that you can actually have a check off and certainty. Because if you're talking about the property owner, technically you'd have to run every title, and that's impractical. And then you might not know where to find them because they might not have a current address. So I'm not comfortable with the ordinance as it's currently drafted. Mr. Dippolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on that comment, we had originally started off with looking at putting the 300 feet requirement in the code, I believe, rather than putting it in the ordinance, and we kind of went away from that. Was there a reason why we did it this way?
Originally, we looked at just doing a resolution of council to say that staff will notify everybody within 300 feet. We did not want to put it in the code, exactly for that reason.
So it wouldn't matter whether it's in the code or whether it's in the ordinance, it's
still would work against us. Unless you do it by resolution, then it's just kind of a policy that we try to inform everybody within 300 feet.
Is there kind of a best efforts way of doing this? So if somebody is
you can always
missed
put
or
they'll attempt to contact or notify. But again, I mean, that if you put that they'll attempt to notify everybody, as the property owners as shown on the tax records, that could, that just says they'll attempt to. It doesn't say they'll necessarily contact everybody. But again,
Can we defer this for further study on how to get this drafted, rather than trying to beat this up tonight and draft something on the fly? I always hate drafting technical things on the fly. Is it possible to defer this? Other questions? Councilman Orleans.
Mr. Davidson, in the past we've had notifying adjacent property owners, and there's been times when we've messed up or messed up one way or another on that, and it hasn't created a problem. So
What we've done before is we followed the zoning procedures law set out by the state, and that says adjacent property owners as shown on the tax records. So we've always used the tax records and done adjacent property owners as shown on the tax records, so that has never been an issue.
So how did we get to this direction then?
We get this far.
I mean, I guess this is a second reading. How come it hadn't come up before?
I didn't do my homework.
Or I didn't do mine.
I did. I spent all day Saturday on this.
Other questions down at this end of the table? Councilmember DiPolito.
We had discussions about, thank you, Mr. Mayor, we had discussions about the 300 feet, and the council at committee decided that they didn't want to go beyond that to, I think it was 500 feet was another example, because we felt it would be too onerous on the staff to have to go out that far.
Right.
So I'm a little concerned about the 1,000 feet for the communication towers. I realize we don't have many of those, and they are really tall. So is there a concern on the part of staff going out 1,000 feet? That seems pretty significant.
1,000 feet is a significant area, but I think the impact of a tower is definitely different than rezoning of a property, because we're always dealing with height. In rezonings or conditional uses or concurrent variances, you are dealing with the use of the property, and they're not really changing the height. You may be changing residential to commercial or something like that. In looking at what we currently have as location of towers on our master siting plan, as well as existing towers, staff probably feels we're going to have less than half a dozen more locations. And, with the interest in the Jones Road fire station site, the interest in the Crabapple commercial site, as well as the interest we're getting in the Lake Charles site, we felt it to err appropriately in notifying within 1,000 feet.
I can tell you, based upon my experience with Lake Charles so far, word has gotten out without the requirement to reach to 1,000 feet. So I don't think we're having a problem with getting the word out about cell towers.
The staff mailed to 1,000 feet for that particular one, because when we were looking at it to mail just to adjoining, it was like 20, 25 homes that were going to be notified. So I made the administrative decision to go 1,000 feet, so we mailed probably 120, 125 notices specifically to property owners within the area.
And those notices were taken from the tax records?
That's from the most current tax record.
Would that be an appropriate way to handle this, Mr. Davis?
I mean, that's what the state law already requires, so it just kind of goes along with the state law that you can use the tax records. So that's.
I'm sorry, we cannot hear you guys down there, even in the microphones. Or I can, I should say.
Well, since the state law already requires that you use the tax, or allows you to use the tax records, then I don't have a problem using the tax records, although they're wrong a lot of times. But that would solve the issue as far as who owns the property. It would just say as shown on the tax records. And then the 300 feet, that's up to council.
Councilmember Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a reason what is the reason we went away from the resolution and into an ordinance? And would going back to the resolution solve the problem? You don't have to answer the first question. You can just answer the second one.
From a legal standpoint, the resolution would be preferable. That's just a direction to staff.
Again, my suggestion is that anytime we start drafting an ordinance on the fly, unless there's an urgency, my recommendation would be to send this back to committee. Other questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
I just wanted to answer Councilwoman Diamond's question. I believe the reason we wanted to have this included was so that the applicants would be aware of who was being notified and so that there would be some sort of public information somewhere for people to go to understand what kind of notice there was. And then if somebody from the community had concern that they weren't notified, we could at least point to an ordinance and say, here's the notice requirements. That's why we went that route originally.
Do we have a motion? Oh, we need to read the ordinance first. Do we have a motion to defer before we read the ordinance?
I'm getting the sense that people aren't comfortable moving forward. On the other hand, there's nothing really substantively different from a month ago, with the exception of the cell tower is the only thing that's different, and certainly we can modify that if need be.
So you wish to proceed with the reading the ordinance?
Yes.
If we'd read the ordinance, please.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the public notice requirements in Article 31 and Article 12 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Roswell and Article 21 of the City Code of the City of Roswell. Now therefore be it ordained, and it is hereby ordained by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, as follows. Article 31, Amendments, Zoning Procedures and Permits, Chapter 31.1, Amendments and Zoning Procedures, is hereby amended by adding a new paragraph to Section 31.1.21 and amending Section 31.1.23, Public Notice Signs, to read as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 31, Amendments, Zoning Procedures and Permits, Chapter 31.2, Design Plans, Section 31.2.19, Appeal of Design Review Board Decision, is hereby amended as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 31, Amendments, Zoning Procedures and Permits, Chapter 31.3, Certificate of Appropriateness, Section 31.3.13, and Notice to Surrounding Property Owners is hereby amended as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 31, Amendments, Zoning Procedures and Permits, Chapter 31.3, Certificate of Appropriateness, Section 31.3.14, and Public Hearing is hereby amended as follows, text of which again is incorporated herein by reference. Article 31, Amendments, Zoning Procedures and Permits, Chapter 31.3, Certificate of Appropriateness, Section 31.3.18, Appeals is hereby amended as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 31, Amendments, Zoning Procedures and Permits, Chapter 31.4, Variances, is hereby amended by adding a new paragraph 31.4.5, Required Notice of Public Meetings, to read as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 31, Amendments, Zoning Procedures and Permits, Chapter 31.6, Appeals of Administrative Decisions, Section 31.6.3, Procedures, is hereby amended as follows, text again of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 12, Parkway Village, Section 12.2.6, Variances for Hardships, is hereby amended as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 12, Parkway Village, Section 12.2.10, Non-Single Family Small Tract Requirement, is hereby amended as follows, text again of which is incorporated herein by reference. And finally, Article 21.2, Standards for Wireless Communication Facilities, Section 21.2.6B, Approval Process of the Roswell City Code, is hereby amended as follows, text of which again is incorporated here by reference, and if approved, this will be the second reading of the ordinance.
Do we have a motion?
I'd like to move to approve the text amendments regarding revisions to the public notice requirements for rezoning and other applications, RZ 09-18.
Does that include the current definition of property owner? Does that include a notice to the taxpayer?
Amend that to attempt
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
And Mr. Davis can clean it up, but my suggestion would be to send the notice to the, what was the terminology you used, Mr. Davidson?
Property owners as shown on the Fulton County tax records.
And then when it says mail no less than 10 days preceding the date of the meeting, and I would say to the address shown on the tax records. Mr. Davidson, would that be appropriate?
That would be appropriate.
So you're saying that the previous wording, when it just simply said abutting, was also
It
inadequate?
says surrounding property owner, and what our suggestion is surrounding property owner is shown on the Fulton County tax records, the most current Fulton County tax records.
I know, what I'm saying is the prior ordinance read abutting. It had no specificity as to exactly how those people were to be determined.
That's correct, and that's because we followed the state law directly with our wording previously, and so that was defined under the state law as being the owner of record by the property taxes. With this change, it might take us out of that category a little bit, and it'd be better just to go ahead and state it, that it's the owner as shown on the tax record.
The wording again is property owners as identified by
The Fulton County tax records,
What happens if we change counties?
or the county tax records. How's that?
There'll be a number of things that have to change in that case.
And then the last part, Mr. Mayor, you suggested?
To the address shown on the county tax records. Address of the taxpayer shown on the county. The address is shown on the address of the property owner shown on the tax records. And then then you know where you should send it and who should send it to, and you can pull that right up on the internet. Makes it simple.
Okay, so then all the appropriate locations within this to add the terms as identified by the Fulton County tax record. I'm sorry, the county tax records. Mailed no less than 10 days preceding the date of the meeting to the address on record.
Address of the property owner shown on the county tax records.
Address of the property owner shown on that record, on the tax record.
Correct. And that would go throughout the ordinance where it talks about property. You make that same change throughout.
That would be the motion.
And I apologize. What did we say about the towers, the cell towers? Is that 1,000 feet? Cell towers?
Apparently that's the practice we're engaging in.
I'm certainly what your motion is.
The motion is leaving it at 1,000.
Leave it at that. We have a motion with the change to who the tax to the notice is sent to, and the address is being shown on the county tax records. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Back to council. Councilman Orleans.
Mr. Davidson, back to your point about if somebody's not notified and affecting the zoning or being appealed, what words can we use? Can we use attempted? How can it be worded to not put us in a position of having to redo it or the applicant having to redo it if somebody misses a notification?
You could.
Do you have something tonight or no?
You could put it that they shall attempt to send, and as long as they can show they attempted to send it to the people, whether they got it or not, it wouldn't matter. So, but that, that would work.
Would work.
I would say a good faith effort. Some people's attempts are less than good faith.
Do you want to change your motion or want an amendment or what? How do you?
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to add that to the motion? Or
I'm suggesting if you wish to add it, I would say a good faith effort to send a notice.
So the wording would be a public.
Anybody who's doing their job is going to stamp that thing and put it in the mail. Is it the city's responsibility to do this?
Yes.
And we don't need to define mail, do we? Right. I don't think it's changing it a lot either way. It gives you a little more wiggle room, but we should be doing our job and put it in the mail to them.
Yeah, we should. I just think we need to clean it a little bit so that we're not going to have an appeal based on one person not getting a notice.
We have a motion, and we have a second. Mr. Orleans, do you wish to propose an amendment?
I will amend the motion.
Making a motion to amend to
include that wording. On a good faith attempt of notification.
All right. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Price. All in favor of the motion to amend, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Nope, we got a comment. Opposed. All right. Those in favor would be Councilman Orleans, Councilmember Price, Councilmember Eigelhart, Councilmember Wynn, and Councilmember Diamond. Opposed, Councilmember DiPolito. Did you want to express the reason for your motion? Your motion, in case you might want to change some minds.
Yeah, I think that by adding that additional language, it waters down the intent. And it is our responsibility to send letters. There's always people who say they didn't get a letter, whether they did or they didn't, who knows. But we can't prove that. So, it's our responsibility to get the notices out. And I think we should take that seriously. And instead of providing ourselves wiggle room for not doing our job, I don't think that's appropriate.
Does anyone wish to change their vote? Councilman Orleans.
No, I just was going to comment. I don't disagree with you, Councilman DiPolito, on taking responsibility for it and so forth. But over the years, I have seen where sometimes a notice doesn't get in somebody's hands, or in their mind it didn't get sent to them, even if it did and it got lost. And I would just hate to see the whole process go through a zoning change and then the applicant have to go through it again because somebody just said that. So, I mean, I don't disagree with you that we do need to take the attempt, but I don't think I'm trying to water that down at all, or that staff will not follow through on that approach.
I completely agree. We don't want applicants to go through this twice, especially for an administrative error. But the way the ordinance is written now, we don't have that wiggle room, if you will. So I just don't feel it's appropriate to add it.
Motion to amend passes 5-1. Any further discussion of the motion as amended before we vote on it? All in favor of the motion as amended, raise their hands. That is Councilmember Diamond, Wynn, Eigelhart, Price, and Orleans in favor. Opposed? Councilmember DiPolito. Passes 5-1.
Mr. Mayor, let me add the comment that I am completely in favor of the notice requirements, and I think this is a really good thing for us to do, and in fact, I helped initiate it, so I'm very much in favor of it. However, I did have an issue with that one last tweak there at the end. Thank you.
All right, I need to back up and ask council to vote to approve a motion to approve we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. That was interrupted by Houdini. And back to you, Councilmember Price.
The next item is initiation of a text amendment, oh boy, regarding companion animals. Mr. Townsend will present.
Yes, this is a proposed text amendment dealing with the definition of companion animals. We currently have a definition in Article 3. We do not have a definition in Article 3. We have a definition in Article 8, which is our nuisance section of our code, which normally controls things that are creating nuisances. At the committee level, it was recommended that we initiate the text amendment and restrict the number of dogs, which is currently at 3, as well as the number of pygmy goats and pot-bellied pigs at a maximum number of 3 also. There has been some redrafting going on by Councilman Price today. We're looking to get it to our legal counsel. Staff would recommend initiation of the companion animal ordinance. The redrafting that's going on is simplifying it. The latest draft included the limitation of the number of companion animals within the definition. We're recommending that that be placed in a separate section of the code, while pulling the section where we currently control dogs, and including pot-bellied pigs and Vietnamese goats, pygmy goats and pot-bellied pigs. It's a number of 3. We're also looking to simplify the definition as well as the cross-references that were requested at committee. In summary, staff would recommend this be initiated. This draft would then be taken to the Planning Commission for their review and back to Mayor and Council for first reading.
Do we have a motion for initiation?
I move to initiate text amendment regarding companion animals.
Motion to initiate by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item is initiation of a text amendment regarding real estate directional signs for agent caravans. Brad Townsend will present.
Yes. This is a request to initiate a text amendment related to real estate caravan signs. What is being proposed is the red language to be added to the current language, which would allow real estate signs to follow all the current rules, and then we establish the time frames between 6 p.m. on Monday and 5 p.m. on Tuesday in which the caravan signs are able to be placed with the current rules and regulations that are established on the weekend. Staff would recommend this text amendment be initiated.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Price to initiate the text amendment for real estate directional signs. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion? Councilman Orleans.
Question, Brad. How will we know if there's a caravan or if there's not?
We won't know. The only way we'll know is if the signs are still out there on Wednesday morning and we find them.
Well, no, I mean, they could be out there on Tuesday and we not know if there's a caravan or not.
We'll probably know, by seeing the signs placed out Tuesday.
Okay.
Mrs. Love would like to comment.
Councilman Orleans, from a verification standpoint, I think I understand your point. We wouldn't know if the real estate company was having a caravan or not. It is traditional for them to have the caravans, but just like any other sign on the weekend, we don't do any checking to see if that in actuality occurs or not. From a staffing standpoint, we just don't have staff to do that. So we would not know if a caravan actually occurred or not, unless we attended it ourselves or someone told us.
Other questions? Do we have a motion? Do we already have a motion in a second? Already have a motion in a second. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item, SC09-06, Sidewalk Cafe License, INC Street Food LLC, Canton Street. Brad Townsend.
Yeah, this is a proposed sidewalk cafe license to be located at 948 Canton Street. This is proposed for this location that is a new restaurant along Canton, and this is a picture looking north as well as looking south. The existing tables and chairs are in front of the restaurant being proposed. They would be placing barriers along the top of the walkway areas, by that way being allowed to serve alcohol within a defined area for this location. This is the proposed first phase, the red area being the location where the barrier would be located. They have the two existing tables located on this drawing, north and south of the existing door. What is being proposed for the second phase would be for the removal of the stone bricked area, the chain having more of a curved look to it, and additional tables being placed along the bricked area. I believe that's to the east. This design contemplates being able to maintain a handicapped area access to the south, since that is a lowered area, and the only way to get handicapped access into that location would be maintain it through this future license. They have complied with the licensing requirements of the current requirements for staff, and staff would recommend approval of this application.
Would you go back to the photograph? I'm just trying to visualize the change. So what changes where that raised area is would be sunken?
Right. They would take, this is where the chain link fence would be. Sorry. The steps would be, these steps would come out, this handrail would be removed, and this would be sunken in this area, and additional tables put there.
Does the HPC need to approve this?
As part of the sidewalk cafe requirements, we went to HPC and got a standard fence as well as a standard table and chairs, which the applicant is proposing to use.
And the applicant would pay all the cost of this?
The applicant would be required to get a permit from RDOT to work in the public right-of-way, because this is our public sidewalk, and pay the cost of it.
If we could have the applicant come forward?
I have a question first, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly, Councilman Orleans.
Brad.
Yes.
I think Jerry's comment about the Historical Preservation Commission. I mean, this is our city sidewalk, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, we're giving them permission to tear out all these bricks to flatten it out.
Right.
That has not been looked at by the Historic Preservation Commission, and I think that's what the mayor's asking, and that's what, I mean, the city's got to give permission to change its whole look and contour, and I think we should have the input of the Historic Preservation Commission before we go ahead and authorize to rip out all these stones.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking also, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I'm personally fine with ripping out all those stones, because if I go back and look at what this thing used to look like, this is not, these stones are new too. These stones aren't original to the site. So this isn't changing what was there when I was a boy. It's already been changed. So
right.
So I just wanted to go back and look at that. So that's really a procedural issue. I don't have a concern with it, but staff has to decide whether it needs to be approved by them.
Well, I think we should have them look at it, because it's changing the look of the street and the
I think
makeup of it.
It's better than what you've got there right now, but I'm not going to comment.
Well, I may not disagree with you, but I think, it's city sidewalk and city property, so we should have some input from the people that we expect to take care of this area on what their thoughts are on it, or if it's a certain way it should look, is all I'm saying.
I understand. I wanted the applicant to come forward to recognize that this license is not a permanent right. You'll be spending money to do this, and it becomes city property the moment you spend that money, and you have no vested interest in this area. If the city in the future changed its rules, you might lose your investment. I just wanted y'all to be aware of that going in.
The record. Just speak it. Just name and
Hisham Mazari.
Oh, Louis Friend.
Yeah, I just wanted y'all to be aware of that.
Yeah, we do understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're not changing walkways at all. We're just removing the big stones in the area.
I understand exactly what you're doing, and that's why I wanted to look at it. The reason I want you to come forward just so you recognize that, and I think it's an improvement myself. We'll see what the HPC says. Council member, any other comments or questions from council members? Council member Diamond.
What you're asking for tonight is phase 1, though, right?
Yes, just to put chain up on top to confine the area.
Okay, so we've got time to work on the second part.
Well, I would hope that if we could we get, the council would consider approving phase 2 subject to the HPC approval, so these gentlemen don't have to come down here a second time.
That would be nice.
Other comments? Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you. Well, that was one of my questions, because I don't want to do phase 1, then you have to come back for phase 2. Let's get it all done together, but again, I think you need to go to the HPC. Are you saying that you're going to remove all of the flagstone, every single bit of the flagstone?
No.
How much are you removing of the flagstone? That's what I'm trying to
Where you
learn.
see on top of the stairs there, that would be the width going all the way through. That wall would still stay made out of stone.
the top step width would still remain the whole length.
Okay, but what I'm trying to find out is all of that going to be sunken or not?
All that will be sunken, yes.
All except for the border. Okay, now y'all looking at flooding and water issues and all
There's
that kind
a
of stuff,
drainage
right?
system in
and
there,
the drainage
yes.
issues in that area, because I know there's been some concern about the draining issues in that area. So you're looking at that before you do all this. But I agree
there's
with
existing drain right along the stair, and then we added another one next to the restaurant, so there's a 2 drainage.
I agree with the mayor. If you're going to do this, I would rather do both of them on, subject to the HPC's approval.
Just one last question. You want to go back to your plan?
That's phase 1. Phase 2.
So, go back to your photo. I'm just to clarify something, just for the council. What we're talking about is removing one of the steps down. The other step down services a different storefront and is not part of phase 1 or 2.
Correct.
We're just doing half of this sunken area.
Yes. It stops about at the light post.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What?
The light post is pretty much the key. You see the change in color here?
Just a suggestion. You might go to I would ask staff to talk to the adjacent property owner to see if they want to do this whole thing at once, because if we're going to tear up the street, I'd rather tear it up one time than twice.
We will do that.
I have asked them, and I don't think they're willing to make that whole.
Just wanted to see make that option was available, because we're going to tear this thing up. They ought to. If they were smart, they'd be doing it.
Yeah, getting some space.
Like y'all.
Thank you.
I don't know that that's a job for staff. I would think that they would talk to the.
I'm just saying, if we're going to tear up a city street, I'd rather tear it up once than tear it up twice. Just if staff could just double check to make sure they've signed off. I don't want to run it. I'm not pushing it. I'm just saying, while we're mobilizing and doing it once, there's less interruption.
Okay.
If I owned that building next door, I'd be doing it. Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question about the railing. It looks like, I guess from our phase 1 drawing, we have kind of a yellow line with some red dots.
You want to go back to the drawing?
Yeah, that might be easiest. The top portion of it looks like it comes down through the area that's been lowered. So that doesn't actually work, does it?
Phase 1 hadn't been lowered yet, I don't think.
It's not lower.
Well, it looks like
same
it's,
You're talking here?
yeah. This says new, it has new pavers. Yeah, if you go to the left from where you are, it says new pavers there, so aren't we digging down there and?
That's Phase 2.
It says Phase 1.
Misleading. Then go to phase
So where
two.
does the?
Go to Phase 2. So I think they're just.
Well, Phase 2 is still, you still have the same.
I know,
issue
but I don't
with
think
Phase
in phase 1 you're not going to take out the flagstone.
No.
So that's your Phase 1's a little misleading. Ignore that.
So Phase 2 doesn't work the way this is shown. My point. Because the railing doesn't have a wall to sit on.
Right, but phase 1, we're just doing the divider in there for serving alcohol and food in that area. And after we build this wall, the posts will be made where they are removable in the sleeve. So we'll reconfigure those posts in this area so they'll follow the contour of the wall.
But I don't think that they can, because doesn't the chain have to be consistent with the premises? So,
It's going to be at the same
I guess the
level.
wall just doesn't get cut out as much as you're showing it. Really what happens.
Brad, here's the point. If it's directly in front of the premises on Phase 2, it actually is encroaching a little bit on the neighbor's premises, the way that's shown.
The way that's drawn. But they can't encroach any more than wherever their boundary line of the store is.
Y'all see what we're saying?
Yeah, wherever the line is, that's what we start.
We have to pull back from that line. We can't
we know
approve
that.
this.
That part's got to be pulled back.
We can't give you more than what's immediately in front of your store.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would accept that change. Mr. DiPolito, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good point. Councilmember Wynn.
On Phase 1, I would like to make sure that we revise this elevation since it shows new pavers.
Right.
Because I'm not going to approve of Phase 1 if it shows that they're going to put in new pavers. So I would like to have a clarification that Phase 1 is only to put in the post and the chain.
Okay.
Okay? Because I don't want this to come back and say, oh, well, you approved it because it says it has new pavers on it.
You can add that as a condition of the license.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilman Orleans.
This is a question because you're here tonight, and you guys are the same ones that own Red Salt, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a lot of the issues on Canton Street, and the alcohol issues and so forth. So I want to make sure you understand that, one, the sidewalk access is a privilege the city is given, and two, the liquor license is a privilege the city is given, and that the state laws say no one can go outside that fenced area with alcohol. You can't serve them and have them walk out there, and we've had some real issues with that. So are you guys ready to take control of it and manage that issue with your patrons?
We have been trying to enforce that since we first opened. We enforced it during the Life After 5, even though other businesses serve their drinks in plastic cups. We serve our drinks in glasses, and we try as much as we can to enforce not for anybody to take the drink outside. Sometimes you're not looking, somebody's going to step outside. Having ink opened is taking away a lot from those customers that having to wait and maybe step with the drinks outside. So that amount of people is being divided by 2 restaurants now.
Because I've been there Live After 5, and it's been very apparent, and I've seen no attempt for control. So I'm just,
Life After 5,
I'm just giving you kind of heads up.
Yeah.
We're going to be working on it, and we're going to be taking issue with it. So I hope you guys can take better
Believe
control.
me, if there is anybody that follows rules, it will be me. I promise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last time I noticed, Brandon Beecher and Al Nash were 2 of your biggest offenders.
I didn't see him, but if I see him, I will ask them to step in. but I don't want to get involved in other patrons I don't know to ask them to step in.
I don't know where they got that Miller Lite, but it looked like it was cold and delicious.
Red salt may be problematic a little bit because it's such a small area. This will be confined in the lower area, so somebody will literally have to climb on the wall, except walking on the walkway. So.
All right, we have
It will, and hopefully you can do better at Red Sultan, too.
Do we have a motion? Councilmember Price, do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we approve the applicant SC 09-6 for Sidewalk Cafe License, Inc., Street Food LLC, 948 Canton Street, Phase 1, construction of post and chain as a method to adhere to the state alcohol requirements and contain drinking to that area, that all portions of Phase 2 be completed at a future time, subject to the approval and conditions of the Historic Preservation Commission.
And would that include, in Phase 2, it has to be modified so that it's only directly in front of the building and not shown on this plan?
Directly in front of the building as shown on this plan.
Well, now look at the plan, just for clarification.
That's part of our ordinance, and we shouldn't have to re-clarify that again.
All right, well, we don't need to clarify.
Yeah, they've got to confirm to that.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Diamond and Orleans. Further discussion. Councilmember Price.
I just want-
Councilmember
Wynn. Mr. Davidson, just want to make sure that the language that Councilwoman Price is putting in on Phase 1 would be adequate.
Yes, she said Phase 1 consists only of the post and chains going in, and I believe that's what they were asking.
Two tables. Has two tables.
And 2 tables.
Well, I just want to make sure that there's no new pavers or anything like that. Okay,
No.
We have a motion and a second. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimous.
Thank you.
We have a recommendation for closure to discuss acquisition of real estate. Do we have a motion for closure? Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned.